Athletes and fans around the world, welcome to another episode of Primetime Muscle. It is Olympia week, and we can't be any more excited about this year's Olympia. Here it is. Tim Wilkins, as always, joined by the real deal, Chris Cormier.
Deal in the house. Olympia week. Let's go.
Tarek Elgindy. We got the judge, the man.
Great to be here once again. Excited to see you guys. It is on Olympia weekend. Let's make this happen.
You're going to be judging all weekend.
Maybe.
Maybe he's judging?
No, I will be there. You might get kicked out of the venue, but I will be there.
Oh, Chris, your dealer just showed up at the house. We've got a great show ahead. We're talking about the things the questions we're getting asked at shows and events and on our Primetime Muscle site throughout the year and throughout the sport. Physiques have evolved, rules have evolved, the criteria has evolved. But people have been saying, hey, you know, we need a couple more pounds in a couple of the height and weight classes for classic physique. This year they came out, and depending on how tall you are, they've added anywhere between a couple pounds all the way up to 9 pounds. Guys, when you think about the top three, Bumstead was able to add, 3 to 5 pounds?
No. 0.9.
0.9. But he had 5 pounds still in his weight to his weigh-in that he could still play with.
Yeah, no, that's
I thought
true.
That was was it?
No, but now we're talking about, so that was Chris. So Chris had a couple pounds still within his weight class and height class to play with.
It just increased a little bit, his limit, but he still had weight to gain.
Correct. Now we're talking Ramon and Urs. Urs Kalashinsky, how are these guys going to benefit and how much extra mass can they carry?
Well, Urs was already under his cap, and he was already had a whole lot of weight to play with the last time I spoke with him. But I feel like, you know, the lower category, the shorter guys are going to fare out the best. But also, I've been noticing Ramon has put on a lot of mass. I'm just wondering how that's going to look on the Olympia stage as far as classic bodybuilding. I don't want to start to look like an open bodybuilder also for the taller guys just trying to get on so much mass and trying to keep in mind the balance, the classic balance of a bodybuilder. It's a different look from the open, and I just wanted to stay that way.
The guys have to remember that. Now, Tarek, Ramon and Urs at their respective heights, how much can they gain, and how much do you know how much they still had to play with prior to going into that weight gain?
We can speculate, but I think Ramon can get 7 more pounds, and Urs can get even more than that. So we're talking about a significant number here. The key question is not only Ramon and Urs, is also Terrence and Brian. This new rule, which I think is great, the ratio now is consistent across the board, benefits some of these guys. And coincidentally is Terrence Ruffin and Brian Ansley, they're going to be heavier. That's a sight to be seen. Brian, heavier. Imagine that back double biceps.
Yes.
Terrence Ruffin, conditioned and with more weight. Wow. What if Urs fills up his frame? That's a scary sight. And Ramon is already scary. You put 7 more pounds there, and things could really change.
To Chris's point, he could lose balance. Where a guy like Brian Ansley and Terrence Ruffin, the balance will never go away. It's just not possible. They look so symmetrically perfect for the class.
Well, I might think that Chris is a little bit biased with his guy, Brian Ansley, because if he gains all his weight on his legs and none on his upper body, he might look imbalanced.
That's not how it works in bodybuilding.
Well, no, that's how it works. If you're just working out legs and you're not working out your upper body and you gain the 7-8 pounds just on your legs, you might look imbalanced regardless of who you are. I know you're here to promote your boy, but let's just be realistic.
That's why he got with a classic bodybuilder, one of the original classic bodybuilders himself. His name is Chris Cormier.
Okay, so time for us to go back to the topic. As if we haven't got enough guys, as if we haven't got enough jerks in this industry that are self-centered and like to talk about themselves. Now we got an additional one. Nico Hosen knows exactly who I'm talking about.
All right.
So when we talk about these guys...
Anyway, I was just saying, you don't just work out your legs. You work out for balance, and you work out, and you take that into account as you get ready for the show. Then you pay attention to different areas of the body as you go into the show. And
but here's the thing: you're saying that the Ramon could be imbalanced with more weight.
I'm saying.
Let me just finish. Let me just finish so you can learn something in this life. So his arms and his forearms, are quite big. He might have an imbalance right now. Gaining 7 pounds on his chest, a little bit on his back, might actually make him even more balanced. We don't know. We don't know if Terrence puts all his weight on his shoulders and his shoulders overpower his chest. We don't know.
Tarek, when you put together a physique and you are heavier as in pounds, it's not necessarily you're going to add here and add there. It's not how it works.
Well, Tarek is implying that Terrence or Breon was going to go wellness and maybe just work glutes and quads for a couple of months.
We know a bodybuilder by the nickname of Buffalo Bills of Bodybuilder. He almost won the Arnold Classic, and he had a tremendous physique. He had an amazing physique, but he had no calves.
Who's that?
I'll take over from here. So I will call Whitney Jones back to separate you two. So guys, Classic is. I thought Breon was done with Classic. Is this new rule the one that brought him back?
The new rule did change his mind because if you take a look at the 212 category, it's a different animal from the Classic altogether. You know, the guys are they're hella jacked. I think the Classic look is more suitable for Breon at this time, with the added weight. I've been clamoring and talking and wanting more pounds years ago because, as I said before, Breon turned pro at 176, and he only had 4 pounds to play with since he turned pro, 8 years ago.
So, we've been counseled throughout the year by the judges and Tyler Mannion and everybody saying, hey, don't judge a show by the pictures. And then we all get sucked into social media looking at somebody's pre-show pictures on their Instagram. But I got to say, looking at Bumstead and looking at Breon and Terrence, especially Terrence looks massive.
Terrence it's going to do Terrence really well with his physique. I think that was the one missing key was that added shape and fullness to the muscle bellies the last show he did at Olympia. What do you think, Judge?
I think we spoke about this before. And unfortunately, we live in a time where people are very immediate about success and failure. The fact that Terrence Ruffin, who's won the Arnold Classic, who placed second in the Olympia, had one off year and nobody's been talking about him, shows how sometimes we are absolutely ignorant about the factual history of bodybuilding.
I think the social media, the here and now, and what's
exactly. People ignore the fact of the previous results of some of these competitors. Listen, all the hype on Ramon. Ramon won the Arnold. Ramon took second at the Olympia. You know who's done that? Terrence Ruffin. He's won the Arnold and he took second. So anybody that's ignoring the fact that Terrence Ruffin is a contender does not know bodybuilding. Another thing is Breon Ansley. Breon Ansley's back double biceps continues to be one of the best in the Classic, if not the best. Breon Ansley has actually won the Classic Physique title twice. Breon Ansley has defeated Ramon. He has defeated Terrence. He is the only one that has defeated Chris Bumstead. And nobody talks about these guys. We love to talk about Ramon and Urs, and deservingly so. But we need to learn how to look back in history and say, hey, here comes a guy that can win this. And let me go back to history. In 2008, Dexter Jackson won the Mr. Olympia, okay? He beat Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was second place. Pay attention to this fact, second place. Flex magazine put on the cover prior to the 2009 magazine, Dexter Jackson and Phil Heath. Half body of Phil Heath, half body of Dexter Jackson. Mentioning that they are the ones to fight for the title. On the right corner, they had Jay Cutler, okay? Jay Cutler had won the Olympia and took second. It's not like he took fifth. So they completely forgot about Jay Cutler. The man came in 2009 at the Orleans Arena. He did the quad stomp, and the rest is history. The following cover of Flex magazine was Jay Cutler ripping the previous cover. We cannot ignore the history of bodybuilding. And the history of bodybuilding shows that if you won the Olympia, if you've been there, if you play second or third, you can never be discarded. Do not discard Terrence Ruffin and Breon Ansley.
Real quick, I want to shout out someone. We talk about how posing, especially in classic physique, really displays your best, puts your best foot forward. There's a young guy, won, I believe, Atlanta, Linda Murray show, Carlos Domar.
Yeah, glasses. He's got the glasses.
A lot of potential. He's qualified this year. Might crack that top 10. Some more maturity in his muscle mass and some good posing. This kid's going to be part of that top 5 in the future, in my mind.
Galingo he's living in Brazil now, but from Colombia.
Diego Galindo from Colombia, living in Brazil, took second in Tijuana, then went back to his country, Colombia, and won the title. I'm also going to mention one name here, okay? Chris Cormier and I were at the check-ins at the Tijuana Pro, okay? We're at the check-ins. And Chris came up to me and asked me, who the hell is that? And I said, well, that's a bodybuilder from Brazil. I remember when he turned pro. And he goes, wow, I'm impressed. And that was Fabio Junior.
For sure.
Chris said, this guy is winning the show. I said, Chris, let's wait for prejudging. Let's wait for finals, okay? Don't be like the internet. And Chris like, Tarek, this guy's winning the show. I'm like, Chris, he hasn't tanned. He hasn't done anything. He goes, Tarek, this guy's winning the show.
I judged everybody from everyone who went up there. I was watching who's weighing in. I was like, this is the most impressive physique up here right now.
And it saddens me to say, but Chris was right. Chris was right.
You guys want me on a judging panel? I could be free sometimes.
We drug test Chris, so you're out of it.
Oh, so here we go.
Okay, so Chris was right.
In here and
Chris was right, and we got Fabio Junior as a great contender, and he looked incredible, and he might put some pressure on the top guys.
Well, we shall see. It's almost hours away at this point. What's coming up at this year's Olympia? If you can't be there, absolutely get your Olympia pay-per-view. More to talk about with this year's Olympia when we come back on Primetime Muscle. We're back on Primetime Muscle, and the countdown to the Olympia continues. And some guys now, it's a trend to just go into isolation. Guys are shutting down. They're going to Kuwait, Dubai. Big Rami came over and hugged her down at DJ's house, at Dennis James.
Yeah.
And we got our current Mr. Olympia, Hadi Choopan, has gone into a bit of an isolation. Guys, what do you think that's going to do for his shape coming in?
One time I had a chance to speak with Jay Cutler about being a Mr. Olympia, the responsibilities of being a Mr. Olympia, and he said it was easier to get to the title than maintain the title. He goes, Tarek, when you're second place, all the attention is on the Mr. Olympia, and all you're doing is chasing, training, working out, chasing that title, chasing that guy. Once you become Mr. Olympia, the demand for you to travel and also the financial opportunities come. You know, people offer you a lot of money to guest pose in Germany. Then they offer you a lot of money to go to India. And it is your time to make that money. But at the same time, that disrupts your regular routine that got you to beat the Mr. Olympia. Hadi Choopan has an advantage, which, you know, it's an advantage and disadvantage because he's in Iran, he's maybe a little bit isolated from the world, he's not getting these guest posing opportunities that he would get. He's in the United States, Canada, Europe, or India. but he's in his country and he has the focus of a guy that's chasing a Mr. Olympia. So he didn't have the disruption of a Mr. Olympia. He missed out on the marketing or maybe on some money, but one thing is for sure, he looks real focused.
Chris, what do you think about this this isolation? You've been over to the places where people hunker down. Even Brandon Curry leaves and goes, which is, by the way, guys, another name I keep forgetting. I've seen update pictures of Brandon Curry, and I've forgotten Nick Walker. Brandon Curry, a former Mr. Olympia, looks insane. There's a couple spots he needed to touch up, but he'll be back. But
yes, he's out in Kuwait at the world famous Oxygen Gym. I may find myself out there also. I've been out there many years, but I liked when I brought Breon Ansey out there before his first Olympia title, and we spent the last 2 months in the desert. It was nothing to do but bodybuild. For a little leisure time and a little break up the monotony, we're taking a movie together as a camp, and also, you know, go to the mall sometime. That'll be it. Other than that, is food, gym, pose, gym, pose, food. That's it.
And how do you feel about that system? Is it just?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I wish I could have gotten to that point to where it was like I can go to Kuwait and do some type of just isolation and just total focus. You're not worrying about, you know, people at the door. You're not, all the different little things that you do throughout the day, going here or going there, that's all cut out. You're not driving any cars or any type of outside stresses. It's just all straight bodybuilding. And I think that's a great thing. I think a lot of people like to be comfortable in my own house, but being uncomfortable, getting ready for a competition, not having the comforts of home and the stresses that, you know, maybe kids running around or something like that, all that's out of the way, and it's just you focus on you, and then go for the title.
He looks physically bigger, Tim. He already, I think one of the main factors that he won the Olympia in 2022 was he looked bigger than 2021. It was noticeable when he came on stage. He looks even bigger now. We definitely need to control the abdominal section. You know, when you start getting big, you know, that abdominal section can't, you know, be extended. He knows that his conditioning in 2022 was not his best. Despite the victory, his conditioning in 2021 was superior. I think Hadi Choopan is going to be right there in the mix, knowing that he is a champion. And I'm going to tell you this, Hadi Choopan, if he's at his best, he is, in my personal opinion, the best poser in bodybuilding right now. Out of all the categories, wow, he is the best poser. People don't talk about his posing, but he just has the movement, and then he actually gets to that very abrupt moment where he catches the judge's attention. Hadi Choopan has been competing for decades. Despite the fact that he's not in his 40s, that guy has been beating that muscle for decades, and he's been posing for years. He is the best poser. That's something that Derek Lunsford, Samson Dauda, Nick Walker, Andrew Jack, everybody who's at the Olympia needs to say, man, we are losing to a guy that's the best poser in bodybuilding. We need to cut that gap and start posing better. He is the best poser in bodybuilding.
Tarek, one thing you got to understand about Hadi is, even though he's placed third a few times and placed in the top 5, you know, throughout his venture in the Mr. Olympia contest, he still looked like the winner a lot of those times, walking away with a third place victory. So that mind-muscle connection, the way he's hitting those poses, he's got that just down, just as a champion would have won all these years.
Well, here's a question I have for you both, because aside from the fact that, like Jay Cutler was saying, in every class, in every division, you have a responsibility to be the ambassador to the sport and the champion, to be the Olympia champ, to go around and shake some hands and go to the expos and just be there. And it's, as much as it's about making money while the iron's striking, while the iron's hot, I really do think you have to. Natalia Coelho has been very big on that this year, saying, I'm going to make sure that I'm being the best Olympia champion I can be. Now, that said, we've all talked about this, especially with the guys from your era, Chris, who would do 3, 5, and 7 shows a year. how much does he miss on the ability to see this year, how am I peaking differently? Peaking in a March like at an Arnold Classic and then showing back up 7 months later and peaking again with newfound knowledge, because your body changes every year.
Yeah, but she is one that's back on her same eating diet just directly after the show. She's okay with it. Don't bother her to go out and do the extra cheat meals. I don't ever see her posting a bunch of cheat meals. Have you?
No.
Me either. So, I mean, she's totally focused, and that's why it's like easier for her to make these different appearances at these shows and competing and doing them multiple shows throughout the year.
So what do you think about the guys, though, not competing at all throughout the year? All of them. I mean, isolation is one thing, but not competing, not getting out there and going through the process.
It's going to be a hit or miss. You know, you may roll the dice, and you may hit it. Depending on your discipline in the off season, I think that's going to play a big factor in when you going for the Mr. Olympia. You have that one shot, you know. So you may learn a little something about your body. That's 6 years past, you know, prior to the last time you compete. So all this stuff, you know, and your body changes year after year. You can't think that you're going to do the same diet you did last year. The composition of the water and fat and sodium, all that stuff's going to play a big part in you peaking.
So that begs a question with you. So you've been judging. Did you do the Olympia a couple years ago, the men's open night?
Yeah.
So one of my favorites, Hunter Labrada, and a couple of the other guys on pre-judge night were just pouring water. And as the call-outs continued and the quarter turns continued, some of these guys were really pulling a lot of water and didn't hit that peak the way they wanted to. There's the guys like Phil Heath, Mr. Saturday Night, but there are guys that if you don't compete, you don't learn from the previous year, how do we rectify our water issue? How do we rectify our peak issue?
You know, I am a firm believer that the more you compete, the more you learn about your body. I'm also a firm believer that if you do a prep, you should do more than one show. Even if you win that show, you should do 2 shows. If anything, maybe 3 shows, because you're already in shape. Take advantage. You want to show, see if you can get some extra money. Most of the times, the tradition has shown that if you are a Mr. Olympia, you just go back to becoming a Mr. Olympia. You take the whole year off. Despite the fact that it has historically shown to be successful, most Mr. Olympias have repeated their titles. I believe the guys that have done 1 or 2 shows throughout the season, they are percentage-wise more successful in bringing their conditioning to the Mr. Olympia. Let's take a look at last year's Mr. Olympia. If you look at Samson Dauda, he did compete a lot. His conditioning was not there. But let's look at the top 5. If you look at the top 5 at the Mr. Olympia, Hadi Chupin, very good conditioning, but not his best. Derek Lunsford, very good conditioning, but not his best. He was more conditioned when he won the 212. 3rd place was Nick Walker, and his conditioning was impeccable. Who out of those guys competed more? Nick Walker.
Nick Walker.
Okay, so, hey, you placed ahead, but you missed your peak. The guy who took 3rd hit his peak, and he's been competing a lot. So pay attention to the guys that have competed at the Arnold Classic. Nick Walker, Samson Dauda, Andrew Jack. Andrew Jack competed in Texas as well. So those guys have been testing their bodies. Hadi has not. Now, granted, he's been consistent. Derek has not. So,
well, we're going to talk about that and a couple other things when we come back, when we finish out this final segment on our Olympia Week countdown to the big event. And we're back, and this is the final segment before the big event. The big night, Saturday night, and Friday night as well, but Saturday night's already sold out. Friday night, men's prejudge for the Open is always packed to the rafters, but if you can't make it there and you know you don't want to miss the action, that Olympia pay-per-view is the way to do it. Guys, we talked about Hadi's heavenly hunker down. We'll see if that's going to pay off. That top 3 is stacked. You and I, since you can't partake in this, we'll talk about some predictions in a minute. But we got to talk about one of the other guys that throughout the year has been tracking in the 320 to 330 pound range, and really only had a couple of spots that the judges said, pick these up and you're going to be vying for that top spot. Samson Dauda, who they said, pick up your back and fix that posing. The man has a massive wingspan right now. Tarek?
Tim, you are absolutely right. We are looking at, a bodybuilder that can come in on stage at 300 pounds with beautiful lines. That is the key issue that people don't realize about Samson Dauda. It's not only that he's massive, but he has beautiful lines. The waist is small, and then he's got those huge legs, makes the waist even smaller. Now, his conditioning from the Olympia to the Arnold was vastly better. Credit to Milo Sarcev. From the back, he has a flaw. He needs more width, and he needs more detail and thickness. If this man comes in, peeled to the bone, with an incredible back, you are talking about, there's not many places to go. It's just like, there's something about his rise. I remember judging him in 2020. He took second to Nathan Diasha. James Hollingshead was third. And I remember looking at Samson Dauda and going, he's a nice bodybuilder. He's got beautiful lines. His conditioning needs to be better, and he's a bit small. And his rise has been explosive. There's something about this guy that you kind of reminds me of the rise of Ronnie Coleman. Some guys that, hey, they've been around and all of a sudden they explode and the world is theirs. Let's see what he's going to do within the next couple of days, Tim. But it's a monster.
Chris?
Well, Tim, I got to tell you, Samson, when he hits the shots from the front, everyone knows that that's a very pleasing, that's his sweet spot. That's the best part of his body is from the front. He can have that sort of Lee Haney look. He can have that sort of, even in the front lat spread, the pecs are massive. Turn out to the back has been his Achilles heel so far, and it's just been the amount of muscle he needs packed on that back to balance out his physique. When he hits a three-quarter back shot, he has a tendency to not utilize that lower lat. It's not fully expanded. It's crunched down. So when he's coming here, he's not taking the full advantage of that lat. And I've noticed that throughout his career, and I've even voiced this to him personally at different times, but it's got to connect with your mind and connect with the muscle.
Are you talking about that twisting back shot?
Yeah.
So that twisting back shot, now here's the interesting thing about that. That was really made iconic by Arnold, correct?
Yep.
At 240.
Right.
You're talking about a man 50 to 60 pounds heavier doing that same twist and trying to hit the same amount of motion with lats that are each 10 pounds heavier.
But
that's a lot of man.
Like I brought up the guy Delingo, he utilizes his physique to the fullest. And that's what, if Samson can do the same, you can see him sliding right up there. He's beaten Nick. He's beaten Nick with his Achilles heel being a prominent sore. he's beaten the target.
Andrew Jack.
Andrew Jack. He beat them at the Arnold Classic. So, he's capable of doing these things.
Oh, yeah.
And so, with that being said, he's been focusing on his back all these weeks, the last few months, getting ready for this shot at the title. And I'm telling you, this one guy who can be super, super dangerous is Samson.
Tarek, I'm going to give you a couple comments, and I think Chris and I are going to swim through some predictions. I am personally going to predict a few categories that may have some upsets that are up for grabs.
Are we going to do upsets?
Yeah. I'm telling you, we'll go right through the categories. I think men's open is going to be a battle, and I foresee a new champion. I foresee a new champion in men's physique. Aaron Banks is going to have his work cut out for him because these guys are if he wins again this year, it'll be a 1 or 2 points. Women's bikini. Bikini wellness is going to be a battle. And
Could you see a new champion in wellness, though?
I can. I can, because they're so tight, and so that class is so tight.
Let's get down to predictions.
So new champions around
this
the clock.
This is the last episode. I'll be judging the show, so I'm gonna come in the predictions. Simple answer. Tim Wilkins, who's going to be the 2023 Mr. Olympia?
Derek Lunsford.
Chris Cormier, who's going to be the 2023 Mr. Olympia?
Let's go, Derek.
Tim Wilkins, who's going to be the classic physique champion?
Chris Bumstead.
Chris Cormier, who's
Breon
going
Astley.
to... Tim Wilkins, who's going to be the men's physique champion?
That's brutal.
I'm going with the current champion.
I'm going to go with Aaron Banks, but I'm going to say that top 3 and 4 is going to be scrambled, and it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game.
In the 212, who's going to win the title? Tim Wilkins.
That's Sean Clarita.
In the wheelchair, who's going to win the title? Tim Wilkins.
King Kong.
I love you, King Kong. I do.
The Kong Master.
I think it's going to be Gabriele Andrulli.
Okay, moving on to women's bodybuilding.
Sure.
Tim Wilkins. Hey, hold on. Hold your time.
I'm just y'all caught up on the game with the
Okay, yeah, well, it's too late. It's too late. Tim Wilkins, who's winning the women's bodybuilding?
Andrea Shaw.
And Chris?
Andrea Shaw.
Okay, women's physique. Tim Wilkins, who's winning the women's physique champion?
I know what he's going. I know what he's doing.
I'll give you the top 5.
No! Just say who's going to win, Tim.
Natalia.
Okay, great. Chris Cormier, who's going to win the women's physique?
Pass.
No, you can't pass.
Yes, I can pass.
You can't pass.
You just said at the beginning of the game. Go.
No, you can't pass. Are you really
I'm
that
unsure.
scared to say?
I'm unsure about it.
Okay.
I'm
What
not
a
sure.
wuss. Moving on to fitness. Who's going to win, Tim Wilkins?
This is a tough one.
I am never going to.
Can I throw 2 up there?
No,
Yeah.
just one.
Go for 2.
What's wrong with you guys? You
Make
guys
your
could
own-
never be judges.
make your own- do what
Make
you
a
wanna do.
decision.
This is equality. Equality days.
Whitney.
What about you, Chris?
If you think I'm ever gonna
Go against Missy.
ever gonna go against Missy, you dead wrong.
You're going with Missy. Okay, moving on to the figure. Who's going to win the title, Tim Wilkins?
Oh sure.
Oh, that's a tough one. I love Sid. I really do. I think it's going to be Jessica.
Chris Cormier, who's winning the figure title?
Jessica.
And the wellness.
And Lola.
And the wellness. Who's winning the title, Tim Wilkins?
If it goes to the champ, it's going to be Franciele Matos.
I got Issa. Let's go home.
In the bikini, stay right here, Chris Cormier. In the bikini,
Dory.
who's doing the title? You think Jennifer Dory? What about you, Tim Wilkins?
I'm going to bring number 5 to number 1. I'm going to go Lorely Chapados.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention
We're
to the
sweating.
pics. We're going to put in their Instagram handle on the comments below. Make sure you harass them if they pick
it's only-
somebody that's
all-
not your favorite.
It's
Chris Cormier and Tim Wilkins. Chris Cormier lives in El Cajon, California, and Tim
sometimes
Wilkins
Las
is in
Vegas.
South Florida. Tim, good luck.
And if you don't get the placing,
After what you said about Nick Walker, I can see why America's not on your side.
and if you get the places that you didn't want, then that's probably going to be Tarek's fault. So let him know that.
So, guys, I am so excited. The amateur last year, I believe, had about 900 competitors in the Amateur Olympia, and it was 2 9 and 10 hour days of emceeing the best from around the world coming to get their pro cards and start their careers at another level. The press conference is always amazing, and then we get down to business. We got Meet the Olympians, and then the Friday night show, the Saturday night show, an amazing expo. If you were within about 10 states or thinking about making a family vacation, that expo is going to be a beast. It's going to be back to the days of the Mandalay Hotel, where we're 400 to 600 exhibitors in sports and karate and powerlifting and all kinds of great stuff. Just really a booming expo. This is a big year. Jake Wood and the team have done their job.
I am so honored not only to judge the Mr. Olympia, but also be part of the Olympia organization. It's been one of the greatest honor. Olympia has been around since 1965. I travel all over the world. The Olympia brand is so strong. It's associated with Lee Haney, associated with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dorian Yates, some of the great names. And the event continues to be better and better. Credit to the entire staff.
Dan Solomon, with his leadership the last 5 or 6 years, up and up and
he
up. He
brings all the celebrities. He makes it more than just a bodybuilding show. He makes it a huge show. Jake is constantly thinking, how can I get the athletes to make more money? And the prize money has been going up. I mean, I got to give credit to ourselves, judges. We have an Iranian Mr. Olympia. And some people said, well, but he might not be the best representation. And we said, it doesn't matter. What matters is what we see on stage. And Hadi Choopan was the best bodybuilder. And he represented the Mr. Olympia in 2023. Every kid in the world that doesn't speak English, that was not born in the United States of America, now has the hope that he can be the next Hadi Choopan.
I think Tarek is trying to say although they put on a great show, great production, it's not an actual show on the stage, it's an actual contest. So the winner, the best one on that day that wakes up that morning and it's the best in the world, they're going to get their hand raised at the end of the day.
Well, who will be the best in the world? And you will be watching, of course, either live or on the pay-per-view. And this has been another great year, bringing you the sport as it is across all divisions, just the facts, here on Primetime Muscle. We can't thank you enough for being part of our family here on the show. The real deal, the one and only Chris Cormier.
In the house.
The judge, His Honor, Tarek El-Guindy. I'm Tim Wilkins. We thank you, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend. Stop by and say hi if you see us out on the expo floor or wandering around. Primetime Muscle, I'm Tim Wilkins. We'll see you next time.
Team Cormiers, let us be known. Let's get it down. Let's get it going. Let's go.